Testing 1, 2, 3. Anybody there? How are we doing? Hello, Bristol. Can you hear me? Excellent. The votes are coming in from Cambridge on this Eurovision night. Very good to not quite see you, but thanks very much for the time, and thanks for the patience with the technical problems. My name's Chris. I'm here in Cambridge, not very southwest, but I'm allowed in anyway. I co-organise a meetup called Working in Sustainable Technology, where roughly monthly we pick a topic of sustainable tech. We get some interesting companies to come and talk to us about it and explain what it's like working for them. So our next one is on May the 4th, and unless you've been hiding under a rock, the topic was probably familiar to you. It's about AI. We're going to be talking about using artificial intelligence for decarbonisation. We've got two brilliant speakers, Laura James from Overstory and Vanessa Moffat from QIO Technologies. They'll spend about half an hour talking about their companies, what it's like, what their journey to those companies has been, where their work has gone, and then we'll have breakout rooms where you can ask your own questions and get to know them a bit better. So I'll share the meetup link for the online folks in the chat, and perhaps the Green Tech Southwest guys can circulate it in the post meetup for everybody else. Hope you have a great evening. I'm really looking forward to this evening's main event. So I'll hand straight back to the presenters to get on with it. Thanks very much.
Screen up here. We want to see if, while we've got this up here, should we see if anyone else from online? That's a good idea. That is, just because I think everyone will be needing another drink otherwise. If not, though, we can. Is it while we're setting that up? Is anyone else in the audience keen for? Okay, we've got you. You'll be next. I think we're going to do one more from here, just to minimise the changeover, and then, if not, you'll be next in line. No one else?
industry in Bristol. And for entrepreneurs who have product or a service that makes a difference to a client, we can provide a storyboard free of charge. And if you like the storyboard, we can make the film. That's it. That's Nigel Smith from Stopmo Studios. Thank you.
Nice and succinct. Amazing. Right. So where are we up to? Got Rob. Last one, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Cool. Rob Knight from Losing the Wires. We specialise in providing all sorts of technologies around mobile devices, and at the moment we're looking to promote using smartphones as an alternative to desktop computers and laptops. A lot of them can be plugged in now into monitors, keyboards, and mice, and we're looking at that as an alternative to replacing a PC or a laptop as and when they come up for renewal or replacement. So many will in 2025 when Windows 10 becomes end of life. We also do things with repurposing the laptops and desktop PCs into different platforms or different operating systems to prolong their life. So we're looking for people interested in trialing those technologies. We have some trial equipment. So if anyone's interested in seeing what a smartphone can do, as opposed to a desktop or a laptop, when it's configured in one of those configurations, then we have some trial equipment we'd be more than happy to send out for you to trial. Thank you very much.
I promise. Right. Right, so thank you to everyone who participated in 60-second intros. We'll move on with the meat and potatoes of today's event. Oh God, now I need to just do this again, right? Oh God, I'm being tested. How do I get my mouse there? There it is. Do a little share screen. She's done this before. Right. Amazing. Oh God, bring the mouse back. Like, this is honestly warping my brain. I can't even tell you. Righty ho. Oh, if I started back at the beginning, we'll just do a quick. Right, upcoming events of interest. This is where we really want to be. So yes, so some of you might have heard of Climate Action Tech. They're an amazing community and source of information to do with sustainability in tech. They've been a great support of us, a great fountain of knowledge. Hannah does a lot of work with them, and they've got they have loads of events. They've got a Slack channel. We just recommend checking them out and getting involved if you're interested. And then also Future Leap Network, they're Bristol based. They also host events. They're a massive sort of friend of ours, and yeah, we collaborate with them quite a lot, and they also host great events, so it's definitely worth checking their website out as well. We'll make sure to link it all. Other sustainability and events of interest. So we've got Sustainable UX from SUX Community on the 3rd of May. So part of the 24 Hours of UX online conference, this year's theme is the future of UX. So we'll link that as well. And then Chris, who we had in the 60-second intro, so his meetup is actually pointed here as well. So it's AI for decarbonisation. Again, we'll make sure it's linked, and I think he shared it in the chat as well. So yeah, make sure you check that out. And then Green Mingle, it's usually at the Bristol Beacon, and it happens every first Thursday of the month. And yeah, it's just a great way to just be networking with like-minded people and share ideas. So yeah, sorry, I'll keep it up for a second to take a picture. But again, we'll make sure this is all available. Then our events, so our next speaker-led event is Inventive Ways to Make Plastics More Sustainable. So we've got the wonderful Neil Morris, who's the Chief Executive and co-founder of Kelpie, and Kevin Chappell, inventor at Pinworld. And then our next hybrid event, which we're really excited to have Dale Vince join us in July. Just something to note for this event, because we anticipate it'll be quite popular. You'll have to go through Eventbrite to secure your tickets. It's free as always, but yeah, just worth getting in there quickly because yeah, we anticipate a big turnout for this one. But again, we'll make this all very obvious for you in our communications online. So your feedback means a lot to us. We'll share this all as well after the event, but any sort of tips or anything, try not to mention tech. I'm joking. But anything that you think we can do better, obviously we want these events to be as enjoyable for you as they are for us. So yeah, we'll share that all as well. Now for the main event, I will exit and leave Mike to it. And yeah, I think basically the best thing to be just while we get the speakers set up, if you want to grab another drink, any more pizza, sort of get yourself settled in for round 2, that'd be great. And then we can deal with this situation, basically. Yeah, feel free to grab a drink and we'll be right with you. An intro and then right, your laptop. Yeah. I think yours is okay. Yeah, okay. So we're going to get online, so that because we think everyone can hear projects, but also mean that everyone online gets your too. So yeah, just fit that wherever you want to. And then we are going to share screen. This is how we did it, wasn't it? Share screen. Oh yeah.
Yeah. All good. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for being so patient. We're going to hand over to Aisha Stewart, who's Net Zero Advisor at Business West. So if you have questions for Aisha, sorry everyone, just going to get started. Hi. Sorry, everyone. Okay. So yeah, we're going to hand over to Aisha Stewart, who is Net Zero Advisor at Business West. We'll have questions for Aisha and Adam at the end of both of the talks. So we'll take questions from people online, and they can use the Ask a Question section. And for people in the room, just pop your hand up at the end, and we'll run around with microphones, and we'll figure it out. So yeah, over to Aisha.
Perfect. Let me just test my slides. Make sure all good. Oh, thank you. I haven't even said anything yet, and you're clapping already. So I love it. Yeah. Good evening. It's nice to meet some of you earlier. Nice to chat. And thanks for everyone that's joining in online. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Okay, I'm sure it's okay. Yeah. I'm excited to be here. Largely because I'm here talking about a topic that I'm quite interested in and a little bit passionate about, but also because I just love to talk. So I think it's probably one of my strongest skills. But over the next few minutes, I'm going to try to talk about stuff that you're here to listen about and hear about. Give you some insight in terms of what we've gained from speaking to businesses from our perspective at Business West, who are on the journey to reducing their carbon emissions, or thinking about joining that journey, or not even near it at this moment in time. And I'll break down a little bit about what the greenhouse gas protocol looks like, and where some businesses are starting to take some actions within kind of each of those different scopes. Does that sound all right? Fab. I'll quickly just introduce myself very briefly. So my name is Aisha Stewart. I am the Net Zero Business Advisor at Business West. My role involves me working with some of our members as well as businesses within our region, like I said, that are interested in getting started on this carbon reduction journey and needed a little bit of support along that way. I deliver workshops to businesses to kind of get them started on that journey, understand some of the jargon that tends to exist within the space, and then provide some one-to-one support as well. And then outside of work, I'm a director for Bristol Energy Network, which is a community organization that engages with businesses as well as individuals that have an interest in energy in Bristol in particular. I do just want to share a little bit of information about my employer. So Business West, we are the largest chamber of commerce in the UK, and we work with over 20,000 businesses with the aim of making the Southwest the best place to live and to work. We are the first chamber of commerce to become carbon neutral, and we're aiming to be net zero by 2030. Additionally, we became B Corp in 2021, which is a designation for businesses that demonstrate a high social and environmental performance, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. But as an organization that works with a range of businesses across the region and developing workshops and resources to support businesses on their sustainability journey, we really want to ensure that we are leading by example. Additionally, we are involved in some leadership boards within the region, and that provides an opportunity for us to be a voice for our members as well as other businesses within the region and any kind of key decision making that happens within those spaces. And so far through our workshops, we've helped over 70 businesses, mostly kind of SMEs within the region, get started on their carbon reduction journey. So at Business West, we run a quarterly economic survey to get some insight from our members as well as other businesses on kind of how they're doing as an organization, understand the health of businesses within the region more largely. And then for one of those quarters, we include some questions around climate action to get an understanding of how businesses are kind of potentially taking action, what some of those challenges are. And in our most recent one that included climate questions, we asked, what are the barriers that are preventing you from taking action on climate change? Some of these you might be already familiar with, or this is not kind of shocking information to you, but a lot of it is around kind of lack of resource, whether that's financial or even people capacity as well. Do they have the capacity to kind of even be thinking about this and taking action on it, as well as kind of also the lack of knowledge and also the overwhelming feeling of this subject as well, which is completely understandable. And so part of what we're really keen to do at Business West is to understand what some of those barriers are for some of those businesses, and figure out how we or potentially other organizations can support and really kind of tackle some of those barriers that businesses are facing. And then, so as part of the survey, we do get some text responses from some of our respondents if they choose to do that. And some of these really just reinforce that many businesses are interested in taking action and really want to do the right thing, but are also trying to navigate during quite a challenging time for a lot of businesses during the cost of living, the energy prices, and it's unfortunately not the top priority for a lot of them at this moment in time. But I do also want to highlight that not everyone is on board. So these are also some of the responses that we've received from people along the way. My personal favorite is it's a massive con. Or I've lived in 30 to 40 degree weather, so it's fine, it's okay. So yeah, there's still some people that we have to bring along on this journey, and it's really trying to understand what those barriers are for why people aren't engaging in this, and really trying to understand what that hook is for them to get them on this journey. Personally and professionally, I'm quite hopeful, I'm optimistic that the future will be low carbon. So businesses will have to adapt to be part of that future. And what we're really slowly starting to see and notice now is that businesses that haven't really taken any action are starting to feel a little bit of pressure, whether that's from their clients, from the public, or people even that they're interviewing for jobs as well that are asking them, what are you doing as an organization? And I think previously taking action on sustainability was kind of seen a little bit of a bonus, nice little pat on the back, you planted some trees, job well done. But I think we're very much at the point now where it's about future-proofing your business and how are you preparing for a future that is low carbon, and what that will entail for you. So sorry, I just lost my thoughts. And so yeah, in the simplest of words, yeah, the future is low carbon, whether you kind of want it to be or not, or if you believe that or not. So how are you preparing your business for that future is really much kind of where we're at this point. So I'll talk about some of the benefits that we're really starting to see. And I think I've spoken to some people about this, that not many people are kind of interested in or kind of hooked in by the environmental piece, which is completely fair, that's fine. But there are some other drivers for how we can get people engaged and on this journey, very much so. So one of the ones that I love to talk about is kind of, this is also very general information, but kind of the efficiencies and savings that come from kind of the implementation of energy efficiency measures, from additional insulation, more energy efficient equipment, that's likely to result in some financial savings, whether it be on your heating or electricity bills. There's also the opportunity to really strengthen your reputation. This is the opportunity to kind of be seen as taking the lead in some degree, instead of waiting for kind of whatever potential rules come down the place to actually make you kind of do any work. And additionally, there is a growing customer expectation. As individuals are looking to reduce their own environmental impact, there's increasing pressures on businesses to providing more sustainable options, as well as taking a stand on reducing their own environmental impact as well. There was a stat that I was reading today that 76% of people think businesses should have a legal responsibility to the planet, alongside maximizing profits. So people are really much more asking for their businesses that they're supporting to be doing the right thing, very much so, and want to be able to support businesses that are doing that. Additionally, it helps to support other business initiatives. So by acting now and looking at your carbon emissions, it opens up the opportunity to consider other business initiatives, whether that's sustainable development goals or potential B Corp, if that's something of interest. It just really kind of gets that ball rolling in terms of what are you doing as an organization, and implementing some of those kind of strategic frameworks within your organization as well. What we're starting to see a lot more of is kind of the expanding procurement requirements. So there's an increasing need for businesses to have net zero plans or some sort of carbon reduction strategic plan when bidding for new work. So in 2021, the UK government announced that they're requiring all companies and organizations that apply for central government contracts would need to demonstrate their alignment with the net zero 2050 target. And we're starting to see a lot more of that coming up with local governments, with universities, as well as the NHS, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And lastly, employees are seeking proactive employers. I think increasingly more people want to work for organizations that are doing great things and align with their own personal values. And so speaking to some of the businesses already, some people that have come along to workshops or any that we're engaging with through our QES, we're finding that a lot more people that are conducting interviews, people will come in and be like, so like, cool, like, what are you doing? Like, what's the situation? What are you guys doing? So there's a lot more pressure on businesses to be able to have a tangible response to that. And I think they're a lot more conscious of the fact that they don't have a response. And so kind of proactively trying to figure out what they can do to have that. Another statistic, so about 70% of employees now demand purposeful work. According to the 2021 McKinsey study, these purpose-driven employees are 6 times more likely to stay at a company. So it's really about kind of how are you getting that wider purpose within your organization to kind of attract that talent and get them to stay as well, which is an important piece. Despite all those benefits, it is recognized that this is not an easy or straightforward process. There's an increasing number of opportunities for support, some of which we've learned about here this morning, where am I? This evening, for support for businesses, because they're not really sure where to start. And often not the first step is really understanding where your business is emitting carbon, and providing some opportunities to develop a plan around that. I'm quickly going to define net zero. I appreciate that probably everyone knows this already, but I'm not going to assume. I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to define it for the purpose of everyone in this room and everyone online as well. So the term net zero is defined as reducing your carbon emissions as far as possible, and then using an offset to remove the equivalent amounts of carbon remaining in the atmosphere. So therefore, meaning your business is no longer adding carbon into the atmosphere. All right. As I mentioned, the first key step towards starting your journey is really understanding where your business emits carbon. This is a diagram that many of you might be familiar with, seen in passing. or see frequently in your dreams, potentially. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol is the recognized method for accounting for greenhouse gas emissions. The protocol breaks down the emissions into various different scopes. So we've got 1, 2, and 3, with scope 3 being broken down into upstream and downstream activities. So over the next few slides, I'm going to break down some of the different components that are included in this, and then where there are some opportunities for reduction, and then provide some examples of where businesses are taking action at the moment. All right, I do just want to highlight that the term carbon, again, apologies if everyone knows this already, but I'm just going to reiterate it because I don't like to assume. So the term carbon is often used to refer to kind of a collective of different greenhouse gases. So all these gases we've got here on the top, I'm gonna do my best to remember all of them. So you've got carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, chlorofluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. My high school chemistry teacher would be very proud of me today. Yeah, each of these gases have a different warming effect or global warming potential in the atmosphere, but for ease of comparison, they often kind of just get lumped into one term. And so often when you see a carbon footprint figure, if you've got a little tiny e beside it, this means carbon dioxide equivalent. So they've kind of lumped all of those figures into one instead of making multiple figures and producing multiple figures for their emissions. And then we have the different scopes. So we've got 1, 2, and then 3 breaking down, like I said, into upstream and downstream activities. All right, so I'm going to get started. We've got scope 1, where scope 1 emissions are direct emissions from owned or controlled sources. These are emissions that come from the fuels for the generation of electricity, heat, or steam from boilers, company vehicles. We've also got fugitive emissions, which will include kind of hydrofluorocarbons that come from refrigeration and air conditioning equipment, stuff like that. And then a myriad of other things that are kind of get included within scope 1. But this is largely around kind of your gas usage, oil usage, LPG, as well as any kind of vehicles mileage and stuff that gets included within your scope 1 emissions. The opportunities for reduction are going to vary largely depending on the business, but I just wanted to highlight kind of a few potential generic ones that we kind of like to highlight within the workshop. So within scope 1, some of the recommendations really focus around potentially moving away from fossil fuels and looking at alternative ways to heat and power your building and machinery. So heat pumps are a commonly discussed option for both domestic as well as commercial properties to provide heat. A heat pump, which is powered by electricity, works by capturing heat from outside and moves it into your property. Another option looks around solar thermal. Solar thermal heating uses energy from the sun to warm water for storage in a hot water cylinder. And then we also got heat networks, because we're in Bristol and I want to talk about heat networks. Does anyone know heat? Is anyone familiar with heat networks? A little bit, yeah, okay. For those that don't, so it is a distribution system of insulated pipes that take heat from a centralized location and deliver it to a number of properties. And that's a lot of what's happening within Bristol at the moment. So yeah, watch this space, is what I say. Not that I have anything to do with it, but it's an exciting time. There's also another piece of work ensuring that the energy that you are using isn't being wasted. So looking at ways to reduce any heat loss will help with any carbon reductions, as well as your bills as well. Additionally, scope 1 includes company vehicles. So considering options where you may be able to change your fleet to low carbon or electric vehicles, or consider how you can kind of cut that journey out entirely as a key piece of that as well. And we've got scope 2. Scope 2 emissions are indirect emissions from the generation of purchased energy that is consumed on its by its owned and controlled premises, equipment, on site. For scope 2 emissions, the options are generally potentially looking at where there's opportunities to generate your own renewable energy on site, which is definitely not feasible for anyone. So maybe the option of looking at renewable tariffs potentially as well. And then we've got scope 3. Scope 3 is exciting. It's an exciting time to be delving into Scope 3. This is the area that's increased in conversation in the last few years as more businesses are looking kind of beyond their own operations and more at the supply chain and the products and services that they're using. Every business will have Scope 3 emissions. These emissions are the result of activities from assets that you don't control or own. Emissions along the value chain often represent a company's biggest greenhouse gas impacts. CDP research shows that on average, supply chain emissions are up to 11 times higher than your operational emissions. The significant challenge with Scope 3 emissions is that they can be difficult to measure, as you're often relying on others to provide this data for you. And yeah, this is kind of the challenge within itself, really, and kind of really trying to build up the quality of the data that exists within some Scope 3 measures. Often or not, the solutions for tackling Scope 3 emissions require some innovation. So it could be designing potentially a new product that has a lower impact, but it also requires a lot of collaboration and partnerships when working with your supply chain or others within your sector that are really trying to take some considerations in the space as well. Over the last few years, we're starting to see a lot more organizations take a bit more action within this space, like local governments and the NHS, who've put in place kind of some strategic plans around how they will be engaging with some of their suppliers going forward. And the NHS is one I will talk a little bit about shortly. Scope 3 is broken down into two. So we've got upstream and downstream. Upstream emissions are associated with the processes and steps to acquire your goods and services and begin delivering your service. And the downstream Scope 3 emissions are related to distribution, use, and end of life of a product or service. There are 15 categories as part of Scope 3. So, you could be looking at transport and distribution of your goods, business travel, employee commuting, and also the kind of the use of sold goods that you create as a business as well. Just to highlight just a few of the opportunities for reductions within Scope 3 as well. So waste is a big one that's often that is included within one of the categories in Scope 3. So it's looking at where there are opportunities to be potentially reusing or kind of feeding into the reuse of materials. So the example that I use is called Collect Eco, where is everyone familiar with Collect Eco? No? So I think they're Bristol-based. They're a Bristol-based organization that take on furniture, like office furniture that is no longer in need and can distribute it out to kind of charities in need. But it's a great way to continue the life cycle of a product that's no longer needed for a particular business. Also looking at where there are opportunities for using low carbon freight. So how do you get the goods to you? How can you do that more sustainably? And then also looking at from an employee commuting perspective, thinking more strategically about your car park. So where there are opportunities to be providing electric vehicle infrastructure, potentially even limiting car park availability, but also are you providing showers, cycling facilities, somewhere for people to park their bikes, lock their stuff up in a locker, just some things to kind of be slightly considering when looking at commuting, employee commuting in general. Am I okay for time? Am I right? Yeah? Cool. Okay, so the NHS is one of those larger organizations who are using their purchasing power to really influence change. They have two targets in place. One is to reach net zero by 2040 for what they're calling their NHS carbon footprint, which includes largely their Scope 1 and 2 and certain aspects of Scope 3, which they have a bit of control over. And then their second target is to reach net zero by 2050 for their NHS carbon footprint plus. So that includes things that they don't have control over, but they can really influence in terms of who they are supporting and the suppliers that they choose to have. So this includes food and catering, medical devices, staff commuting, IT, and more. The NHS uses products from more than 80,000 suppliers, encompassing medical equipment, food, business, and office supplies. And they have committed that in order to help achieve their NHS carbon footprint plus net zero target, they would no longer be purchasing from suppliers that do not meet or exceed their commitment to net zero. So yeah, it's really kind of an example of how large organizations are really using the massive influence they have and their massive kind of purchasing power that they have to really encourage change, often with kind of the smaller SMEs that they're working with. Also to note that I think this is a critical piece is that the NHS is also really trying to help those SMEs that they're working with. So they've not kind of just said, you're on your own, sort it out. They're really trying to help them on this transition process. So from what I understand, they're doing some workshops to really try to help them, support them along that journey to make sure that they're supporting and encouraging their suppliers to kind of get started on this journey as well. And then this is just another example. So they are one of the world's largest IT companies, and they're also working with CDP to address some of their challenges within their supply chain. Their biggest area of focus is the energy performance of their products. And the company is aiming to improve this with the aim that by 2025, it will improve energy performance by 30 times when compared to 2015 levels. They've set a goal of achieving reductions in its manufacturing-related supply chain emissions by 15% by 2025, which is in line with the climate science. They've also clearly stated by 2025 that 80% of their manufacturing spend will go to suppliers with science-based targets in place. This means that kind of long-term commercial incentive for suppliers to set their own targets. This again is another organization using their purchasing power to really influence change within other companies that they work with, and slowly starting to see that trickle down the supply chain as well. I do want to share a really cool project that's happened. I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with this one, but I do want to share kind of the worlds of kind of that are colliding a little bit. So some of you might have heard the news about a swimming pool that is now being heated by an on-site data center. Is anyone familiar with this? Oh, yeah, okay. I'm talking to the right people. I should have known. So the leisure center effectively is getting free heating in exchange for providing a space for the deep green data center equipment, which is roughly the size of a kind of a home appliance, so potentially like this size. The data center is submerged in a mineral oil, which captures the heat from the processors. The heat is then transferred to the swimming pool through a heat exchanger. The leisure center has seen a 62% drop in the amount of gas needed, cutting their bills by £20,000 a year. Insane. So this is one example of kind of collaboration that's needed going forward, and how businesses can kind of be leading the way in doing some of that as well. All right, that brings me to my end. Thank you so much. I've included all my contact details. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. Yeah, we've got all of our Train to Net Zero events are all on our Train to Net Zero webpage on the Business West website. But if you do have any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or drop me an email as well. I'm always happy to have a chat. So, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Aisha. Cool. We'll have a very quick changeover and get Adam on. If you do want to grab what's left of the pizza and a quick drink, got 2 minutes. Great stuff. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, we'll take questions for Aisha at the end. So yeah, next up is Adam Turner, who's head of digital sustainability at DEFRA. So again, if you've got questions online, if you can use the ask a question section, if you're in the room, take a few, and then we'll all head to networking at the pub, the Knights Templar, which Tariq is going to drive everyone around. So yeah, over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. Gosh, Aisha covered an awful lot there and set my brain spinning all over the place. But I was trying to think, how on earth do I frame this conversation to you? So I'm going to talk about ICT, and by that I mean digital data and tech. I'm going to talk largely about procurement, and I'm going to be largely negative. So I heard a lot. We've got a few techie people in the room. I heard we've got some data scientists and things. I'm really sorry if you hate me after this, but I think I just need to give the picture as I see it. So I kind of like to think I know what I've been talking about. I saw a gap for this in MOD in about 2016. 2006. God, I've lost track of time. 2006. Nobody was doing this. Nobody was interested. I was knocking on the doors of Microsoft, IBM, Amazon, everyone. Not a single person in those companies had the job of sustainability in tech. They might have had a sustainability person, but it's just the person, as Aisha said, to produce a nice little fluffy report to say, that's what we're interested in. Look at us, we're awesome. We've planted some trees. But actually, it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years that these job roles have been created. And now we're in a place where there are thousands, tens of thousands of people working globally on this topic. Where do they go for their skills? Where do they get their training from? This is magicked out of absolutely nowhere. So what I've been trying to do is build this capability across government. I run lots of governance and I've written lots of policy. Basically, if you go onto gov.uk and look for anything to do with digital sustainability, I've written it. That's awful, by the way. I'll just point that out because it shouldn't just be me. There should be a policy team doing this. There should be hundreds of people doing this. I'm really sorry if it's rubbish. So for me, digital data is about making sure that, you know, whatever we're looking at, if we all get excited about all the AI, as was mentioned earlier, and all of it, how on earth do we know that that is better than what we're moving from? So we need to make sure that what we're moving from and what we're moving to and what the delta is between the two. So we do that by baselining what we've currently got. And I'll talk a little bit about that, about how we do that. And we've been doing that across government for a long time. You also then need to move into procurements, how you design and procure your systems. They need to be really stringent sustainability stuff. And I'm not on about shoving ISO 14001 in your contracts and saying that's good enough. I'm talking about actually architecting for sustainability, thinking about how you move to the cloud. You know what happens, well, some of you probably know this, if you move from an on-prem data center to the cloud, what happens is they pick it up and they shove it in the cloud and they go, well, that's magically greener. No, it is not by any stretch of the imagination. And the Amazons and Microsofts of this world, we tell you it's green because we're buying green energy. But as we've just heard, scope 3 is 85% of your digital footprint. Best way to think about that is it's a pint of Guinness, right? So that white bit on the top of the pint of Guinness is your scope 1 and 2. You can get rid of all of that by buying some pre-purchase energy. The rest of that pint of Guinness, that's your problem. That's the bit that's not being covered in these net zero targets and all the rest of it. It's just a huge issue. So when you're looking at tech, you need that sustainability lens to move from where you're moving from, your legacy, to where you move into. And it's with that sort of digital transformation. NHS is such a great example. They are totally missing a trick here. They could completely change their footprint and everything they do, the way they work, if they put a green sustainability lens on their systems, because every single hospital and doctor's surgery and everything else out there has got their own little mini data center and their own little IT team. If they centralized it all and made it interoperable and spoke to each other, and yes, move some stuff to the cloud in a sensible way and all the rest of it, they could save huge amounts of energy, huge amounts of money, and huge amounts, more importantly, of time, and make people's lives better for those that are working in the NHS. But as it is, as I've just experienced with my son this week, they can't even transfer the records from Bath to Bristol for an appointment. So you need to capture and measure and report on all of this, because that's the other level to this. There's no point doing all of this if, you know, the teams don't see it. So this needs to be built into your funding applications and all the rest of it. And this is kind of what isn't happening across government, is that, you know, departments, agencies, bodies, public sectors, they want to move from old kit to new, but it's all done on things that aren't including sustainability, or it would be done on fluffy things like we're going to move to the cloud and that's going to be greener. It needs a much more broader, holistic view on all of this. I can feel I'm getting ranty already, and I'm going to run out of time. So that's the latest MOD data center there. That's sorry, it's one of my oldest slides. I've been using that for about 10 years. The point of that one is that, you know, you've all heard about what's going on in Ireland at the moment. The government have said, let's build lots and lots of data centers. The impact of that is that people can't boil kettles in their homes. The key thing here is consumption. You've got countries in the world that are consuming 30% of their energy just for their digital. Is that the world that we want to live in, or should we be thinking about this in a different way? Again, it's the obvious thing, but our supply chains are global. So social value add, some of you may be aware of, is great, but it doesn't cover it. It doesn't cut it for digital because it's international. So what's the impact of what's going on globally? MOD have got a big provider for their hard drives in Thailand. That was hit by a tsunami. It completely knocked them out. It was a sole supplier. So you've got MOD critical command and control systems. I probably shouldn't be saying this stuff. There is slavery. Let's not beat about the bush. I know we've been talking about carbon earlier, but sustainable IT is all three pillars. It has to be, and there is slavery in the supply chain. I work with Amazon. I work with Apple. They go, well, we're trying very, very hard. I tell them it's not good enough. That, you know, I speak to them as government. It is awful what's going on in supply chains, and frankly, they're not doing enough. And e-waste, biggest global growing waste stream in the world. Have a look at the ITU reports. They're horrific. It's growing and growing and growing, and we chuck away most of it. And then geopolitically as well, most of you are probably aware of this stuff, but all the stuff that goes into our laptops and our iPhones, effectively it's a periodic table in your iPhone. Look at who owns most of the periodic table. Have a think about our relationship with those countries. Have a think about what happens if those relationships break down, and then think about why we should move to a circular model. This isn't about carbon, this is about resilience, and it's about responsibility. So there's two sides to sustainability. As you see, I'm majoring on this side, which is making our ICT sustainable, making it responsible, making it resilient, removing waste from the system. And I mean that in every sense of that word. If we are designing a new system, you have to make it lean, mean, green, you know, make it uber efficient. This kind of lift and shift mindset, this anything, it just doesn't work. We cannot do this because we are going to run out of those raw materials. We're going to run out of energy. Then there's the other side of it. I won't major on this. This is what Chris Howes made me put in, Hannah. There are positives, so you can have a look at these afterwards. Other people will talk about this, right? There are good sides to technology. There's some DEFRA examples there. There is some good stuff, but behind all of this, we don't understand the true footprint of our technology. So across government, what we've been doing this since about 2008. All these documents are on gov.uk. So if you have an organisation, you can have a look at these and feel free to copy and paste bits. I don't mind. Originally, there was this one, which was kind of under the efficiency banner. So how can we save money? And that was in the old world of green IT. So that was about screensavers and moving to laptops instead of desktops and not a lot else. That one, I went to the senior board across government and said, you do realise that all of our data is incorrect because all of our footprint is with our cloud providers. Can I go out to them and ask them for their footprint? And amazingly, they all said yes. I suspect it's because they didn't understand what it was that I was asking them. So since 2018, we've been going out as government, £6 billion we spend annually, out to Amazon, Microsoft and others saying, give us your footprint. And do you know what they said initially? No. So what I did was I published that in the national press. And then with 6 months later, both Amazon and Microsoft said, oh, by the way, here's some tools. So you've got the Power BI tool for Microsoft, and you've got the AWS Carbon thing. If you've looked at those in any depth, you'll realize that they are not worth the paper they're written on. They don't include scope 3 data. The Microsoft one is moving along better than the rest of them, but largely the data there is poor. I'll show you that in a minute. This new strategy has got a bunch of procurement stuff in it. So if you're looking for stuff to copy and paste into contracts or anything you're designing digital, that's got a load of good stuff in it. That's the kind of stuff that's in there, and it sort of echoes some of the stuff you're on about, Aisha, which is we got this. So I wrote this with Tech UK, if you've heard of Tech UK, sort of, what are they, kind of professional body for the tech sector. And I got them to agree that right now, for any procurements we do across government, all ICT suppliers will commit to a science-based target in line with the departmental target. So that's where NHS picked this up from and put it into their thing for 2040. But we got the likes of Environment Agency, who've got a 2030 target. So if Environment Agency are procuring any IT, how can they do business with AWS? Because their net zero target is 2040. So you've got a problem there in how these two things link up. And increasingly, chief exec officers are looking to CDIOs and CTOs to say, deliver us our net zero targets through your new technology. So we really need to think about this supply chain aspect. Circular economy aspects, at the moment, zero to landfill, but what I'm really trying to push here is a couple of things. The use of remanufactured kit, especially because that saves about 70% of carbon rather than refurbished. Yeah, recycled materials. So a lot of companies are doing really good stuff about building new kit, but it's actually got loads of recyclable elements in it. And then this kind of, as I was saying, about the slavery and stuff in the supply chain, we need to be sort of understanding where all of our stuff ends up going at end of life. The amount of stuff that's thrown away, the 2-3 year lifespans and stuff, we're chucking away huge numbers. I can't remember them, they're hideous. They make you not want to sleep at night. But we need to be understanding where this stuff is going and monitoring it and holding people to account on all this stuff. Just to mention, this is the group I chair. I won't, there's too many words. The key thing here is that if you want to deliver this within an organization, you need some form of governance. So to give you, I've called it the star. I wanted to call it the stag. They wouldn't let me. The star is basically, I've got reps. So if you've got an organization, if I was a consultant and going into an organization, I'd be looking at your pillars of your organization and your function and saying, who are the leads in each of that areas? That's effectively what I've done here. So for every government department, agency and body and public sector, including NHS, I've got a digital sustainability rep. They all kind of work for me. I've got about 80 people and we write the policy and strategy for government and we do all the annual reporting. And that's that digital carbon footprint thing I was on about earlier. And that all reports through their CDIOs into Cabinet Office. And then it's supported by the ministers. And that's really what I've been doing, is trying to, you can talk about all this stuff all you want, but you've got to find the places in your organization where you can make it hit and make it hurt. So it's finding that governance and finding that responsibility and getting those people bought in. So that group is how I deliver all of this. And then when the likes of the UN or the OECD or the National Audit Office come to us and say, hey, UK, how are you doing? I can provide them with the data. Again, this is what Chris Howes made me put in. Sorry, Hannah. Just to note that, so I should say Chris Howes is the Chief Digital Information Officer for DEFRA. And he's the senior responsible owner for this across government. So he's probably one of the leading people on this globally at the moment. That digital footprint data isn't actually correct. But it's just to note, you can, if you write your contracts right at the end of life, you can get money back from stuff. There's a lot of instances of people buying stuff and then paying again to get rid of it. But if you think carefully about your reuse and your recycling of your IT, your donation, think about digital inclusion, all of that good stuff. Like this example here, in DEFRA, we actually got a load of IT out to Ukraine. And then with modern slavery, there's something called the Modern Slavery Act, which I'm sure most of you are aware of with IT, because I've said it's global. It goes a lot further than that. The Modern Slavery Act effectively is a tick in the box. Have you got a modern slavery statement? Tick, then you get given a contract. So what we do is go a stage further with that and actually sort of audit them. Just give you an idea. So I say we do the government reporting. So it covers 603,000 civil servants, 34 departments. And what we try to show here is all the aspects of sustainable IT. So like you said, you can make money. Don't just chuck it away. You can get money back into the system. That's not very much. That should be more like tens of millions, but we'll get there. We started recording e-conferences, Teams, what we're doing here today, because that's showing how you can reduce travel. So that's a sort of positive side. This is about senior leadership buy-in. So what is the department, agency or body going to do for the next year, signed off by your Chief Digital Information Officer? Forcing the hosting suppliers to give us the data we actually need and then not publishing it because it's not good enough. ICT waste to landfill, aiming for 0%. A lot of companies report 0%. That can't be true. There's always going to be stuff left over. They're lying. Just frankly, there is stuff left over. So sort of, I know it's a little bit boring policy and strategy, but if you want to have a look at all of this stuff is on gov.uk, and feel free to use it. The point is that there's an overarching strategy that defines the standards and everything else, and then there's a bunch of tooling and guides. That's the thing that basically all departments have to go through a process called spend controls. So if they're spending above £1 million on their digital system, they won't get the approval to spend it unless they can prove that they're sustainable, aligned with that. So that's the way I've implemented it in government, but I implement that in smaller companies as well. I've also mandated it through our ESG type reporting, corporate and social responsibility reporting, which is supported by ministers, and then that comes out of Cabinet Office as well. That's all a bit boring, but it's there if you're interested in that stuff. I just want to show you some data. That's what STAR stands for, in case I forgot to say. Big figures. So you might have seen some reports from McKinsey and the like on typical footprints for IT, and they usually say it's about end user devices. Rubbish. It's network kit. Well, that's my experience anyway across government. And I think that is because everyone focuses on end user devices and everyone thinks about hosting and they forget about all the stuff in the middle. And as I've just said with the NHS, that's a great example. Education would be another one. There's a load of edge type stuff in the middle that isn't picked up in what would be traditionally classed as hosting or other kit. But you can say, I do this across government, so you could break it down. I've done all this in Power BI. If you are being approached by certain companies to spend lots of money on dashboards, you don't need to do it. You can do this with some fairly rudimentary tooling in Power BI. Again, all this is published data. Hosting data. What we do is we look at off-prem and on-prem. So that's on-prem in terms of government estates. Off-prem maybe like a Hewlett-Packard data center that we totally own. Things like local application service in the middle, private cloud and public cloud. And as I said, that data there is nonsense. It's actually a lot higher than that. But this is just kind of, it's really hard to get the accurate data from them. So I just want to say, if you sort of remember one thing from my waffle really is that you can't trust the information from our cloud providers at the moment. Assets disposed 2 million kilograms a year across government. And as I say, what happens with it is not necessarily that great, but we break it down. Again, you can do this fairly easily. Mainly it's done by weight. So I suppose that's why it looks like that. The point I wanted to show you is that trends are up. So in terms of energy use, in terms of carbon for digital, it's up. And I think for some people, that's a bit tricky to hear because it's not the narrative we hear from the sector. But this is across government. This is across 603,000 end users. This is across 34 government departments, agencies and bodies. We capture this in great detail. And as I've just said, we've underreported on our hosting massively because we can't get accurate data. So those figures are actually a lot higher. It's growing and growing and growing. And as I say, end of life, that figure's grown as well. That was about 1 million kilograms. That's about 2 million kilograms. The good news there is that we're reusing it a lot better. So I suppose that's positive. But if you look at it in the context, again, you might have heard that ICT digital data is about 2% of global footprint. Again, it's about 10% of government. So I personally believe that's a more accurate figure. And I personally probably think it's a bit higher. I think we're underreporting in lots of areas. So it kind of gets, we don't need to worry about digital. We don't need to worry about data. We don't need to worry about tech because it's got all these enabling factors to everything else. It's actually 10% of the footprint and it's growing. So it's just worth thinking about it in those terms. But that's you can look at that afterwards. But that's kind of the enabling effects. If you can save decent percentages from paper and estates travel and all the rest of it. So it's kind of weighing this up, recognizing the footprint, recognizing it's growing and watching reductions elsewhere. But the key thing is that if you do all of this boring policy strategy stuff, if you do all of this data stuff, you can actually give organizations, companies, whatever, the data they need to make the decisions when they're doing any kind of legacy migration, digital transformation, move it to the cloud, anything. You can use all of this data that we collect, and that's what we do. We give them it, and they can burrow down into it, build it into their architecture, build it into their enterprise, all the rest of it, so that they can improve it and hopefully provide some better data coming off the back of it. That's the idea behind it all. I've got 30 seconds. A bit about collaboration. We launched this at COP27. This is going to grow. Government Digital Sustainability Alliance. We've got 3 working groups. We're looking at scope 3 because, as Aisha says, nobody knows how to calculate scope 3. I've asked all these companies, IBM, Microsoft, and others, how do you calculate scope 3? They all do it entirely differently. Enabling the circular economy and understanding the true ecological footprint of digital. What's at the base of the supply chain? What is the planetary impact of all of this stuff? It's not pretty. I've got them looking at it. They're not enjoying it. Just to wrap things up. So if you're looking at sustainability for your digital stuff, I'd advocate between 10 to 20% of your thinking should be sustainability. It's as important as security. There's a lot of battles with security and sustainability. And for my mind, they're 2 like boxers coming up against each other and about to have a massive fist fight. Sustainability is at least as equal, but because it's about resilience of our systems, because if we don't do this right, we're going to run out of materials, is arguably more important. We're soon going to be in a world where CEOs, CIOs are going to be managing carbon budgets, so they need to understand all this stuff. Skills, there aren't enough, and I'll finish it there. I've probably run out of steam. Thank you. Happy to take questions.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Great stuff.
Slightly over, I'm sorry.
Cool. We'll just invite Aisha and Adam to take a chair, and we're just going to move this out of the way. Thank you very much.
To you.
And Ellen's very kindly offered to run around the room with the mic. So.
I'm just gonna, it looks very good. I'm just going to take it.
Oh yeah, we can share. We can share this one.
The road.
Rocking the road, yeah. I'm going to sit here, and then I'm going to do some crazy. But actually, I'm going to sit over here.
Cool. Well, we're probably going to take maybe 4 or 5 questions, I think, as the good people of the engine shed want to go home. So yeah, we'll take one from the room. And Tim.
Thank you very much, both. Adam, question for you. As the founder of an early stage company, I love the slides that you've got. There's loads of information on there, and it will be great for someone who knows a lot about these sectors already to delve deeper. But in terms of business owners, if they could have a 1-page kind of checklist for do this, do this, do this, do this, so that they, from the very early stages of having an idea, they start out right and they follow kind of a sensible path for what's right at that time, that would be ideal.
That's a brilliant idea. Sorry. Hi, Tim. No, that's a great idea. But it can be relatively simple. I think it's all about, like I said, I think the key thing for me is about removing waste from the system. So if you're starting off new, I'd be thinking about something I talk about a lot is companies make stupid decisions. Like when you got a new starter, we're going to issue everyone with a laptop and a phone and a tablet and blah, blah, blah. You know, straight away, you can make a sensible decision there around actually single best suited device. We had a chap online earlier, I've forgotten his name. I do know him, so I feel really guilty. But you can have a single best suited device for that. And you can think carefully about the kind of technology you want to use. And, you know, and other simple things like digital first meetings as a policy for that. And I think that it's a great idea. I'll probably nick it. Thanks. Yeah, I'll share it with you.
Aisha, you want to involved in that question?
Oh, I don't think I have anything valuable to add. I think it's I am very interested in kind of behavioral change, and I think having kind of clear, quite concise kind of actions is really helpful in kind of overcoming that barrier. I think it can be quite a daunting kind of task to kind of tackle into, and I think people might just dig their head in the sand as a result of it. So having something that's quite clear to the point, I think is a good suggestion. And more generally, I think that's needed in sustainability, I think.
Thank you very much. Should we take another one from the room?
No, those the hands tentatively going up.
Yeah.
I saw a van yesterday from Tesco which said this vehicle is electric and better for the planet. Aren't they ignoring the supply chain of their rare earth metals and also the disposal of their catalytic converter?
Feel free to give a different answer. Okay, this is personal me, not DEFRA me. Okay. The key thing here is consumption for me. I've mentioned it a few times in my presentation. We have to think about what we actually need as a society. So for me, electric cars are replacing what we've already got with something that's the same and consumes just in a slightly different way. I think we should be thinking a lot more about transport connections and all the good stuff that you're probably involved with, Aisha. Would you like to take it from there?
I completely agree.
Yeah.
No, I do. I don't this again, this is the opinion of myself, Aisha Stewart, not of Business West. I don't think EVs are the future. I think you need better mass transit, in all honesty, better cycling infrastructure. It's not a kind of quick solution that's going to fix all of our issues. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, I struggle with that. I think sometimes just flipping the problem somewhere else, I think is kind of what they're doing essentially.
Great stuff, thank you. We've got a question from Chris Poynton online. So this is for Adam. I don't hear much about networking kit being a significant CO2 concern. Could you tell us more about what you found?
So this has been picked up from several large departments that have moved most of their operations to the cloud, but what they haven't done is turned off all the stuff that remained in their buildings. So that's where this big footprint remains. You've got an awful lot of old-fashioned terms slightly, but I am quite old, network equipment rooms sitting in various buildings that have got racks that are consuming huge amounts of energy 24/7. They've got UPSs and various other things in them. You then add onto switches and routers and all this kind of stuff. Yes, a data center done right would have all that network kit in it and it would all be done right. But the truth is, for a lot of organizations, especially across public sector, there's a big leftover forgotten element in the middle, which is where I think that footprint comes from.
Great stuff, thank you. Question here.
Oh, wow. Hello, thank you. So for both of you, I have a 10-year-old son who plays Minecraft a lot. And so my visualization of use of data, the number of gigabytes used by the worlds that he creates, I mean, they're brilliant and I love it. But I'm trying to explain to him, dude, this is being stored somewhere. All these creations of yours are awesome and they are being stored. Stop creating new worlds every time. Just, is there any way of sort of visualizing what this looks like, for kids or for grown-ups? What does this cloud that we don't see? It's a beautiful white floaty thing, and it's abstract. But in my head, they're more like the sort of the cube from Transformers. It's like this thing from hell. But what is, I don't know. I'm talking about a visual that we could use, that we could share and go, this is the size of the building. This is the energy it's drawing up. Like,
I wish there was
I'm not sure what my question is.
No, it's good.
Sort of
So there's a book, which you probably, most people in this room have heard of, called How Bad Are Bananas? And how bad are bananas? Sorry, I should say it in my Bath accent. How bad are bananas? And I've been hiding it, not very well. And yeah, so in there is a stat about Spotify. So if you listen to my favorite album, The Best of the Spice Girls, on Spotify, I'm such an idiot, sorry. If you listen to it 27 times, you might as well have bought the CD. The carbon for buying that CD, distributing it, sending it to you and playing at home is going to be the same as that thing wearing away in the back. So it's full of really good information like that. I'm not sure what else to say, really. I mean, it is just, there's a really good article in Nature from about 2019. If you want to reach out to me afterwards, what it says is, like, we've opened a Pandora's box on data. Yeah. And it's basically saying that, something I talk about a lot is like doing simple things like switching between your HD and Ultra HD on Netflix down to SD. Yeah. You save about 60%, I think, of your carbon just by doing that. If we all stopped using 4K smartphones, and if you started watching videos based on the size of your screen rather than the thing, you can save huge amounts of energy doing that. But there's a really good article in Nature, the journal, that I can share with you, that's got some great stats on that. I think that Panorama documentary the other week about data centers was very scary as well, just showing what's going on.
It's just being able to pass it on to my
Yeah.
child and to myself and to my friends, not to mention, but to my next
Yeah.
generation, to go, this is what you're doing.
I think
this
it's
is what
very
we are
easy.
doing.
Sorry, it's very, very easy to think about meat and air travel and all the rest of it because we're directly connected to it, but we cannot see what's going on in the data centers and in the supply chains for our digital. It's just really easy to ignore it.
For what you're doing about it.
Very good. Okay. Cool. Okay. We've got a question from Nick Lewis online. Are digital carbon footprint methods and calculations stored publicly?
Sorry.
That's all right. I don't mind.
Yeah, so you can go on, as I mentioned, on gov.uk. If you type in Green in Government ICT, you can find the way that we do this. If you want to reach out to me personally, I can share with you in a little bit more detail how we do this. The big problem is scope free. So there's a great company out there called PX3, Papa X-ray free. Have a look at them. They've just launched they're a little startup. They've just launched a free open source tool where you can tap in your enterprise details, all the rest of it, numbers of laptops, desktops, all the rest of it, and it will give you calculations based on their academia. It's worth looking at least as a source of reference. There are other ones out there, but yeah, I'm happy to share mine.
Great stuff. There's a hand up there.
Oh, off I go.
What do I want to do? Press.
Just talking.
Hi. Yeah, we do websites that produce sort of scope 1 in terms of we show the taxation and emissions on new UK vehicles. But we really struggle to get scope 2 information. Like, for instance, what are the emissions for the electricity you're using to power your electric car? And when it comes to scope 3, in terms of building or disposing of the car, we can't get anything sensible at all. So do you think it's going to get any better?
Well, sorry. It will have to, because it's going to be legislated for, and it is coming. But we're currently in a world, I was chatting with you earlier. Is it Harry? Yeah, sorry, Harry. So I was looking at a company called CGI, who are a big international consultancy, and they launched their net zero target for 2026, which immediately sounds ambitious. And then you look at that in detail, and scope 1 and 2, i.e. the energy they're using on site and the energy they're consuming, they're going to reduce by 46%. And the only thing for scope 3 they included was business travel. Out of all those scopes that you saw on your brilliant diagram, just one of those 16, is it? Or 15, thank you. And reduce that one by 46%. So point of time saying that, we're in a world now where people can get away with talking nonsense and publishing it on websites, and that should be completely wrong. But we are very, very rapidly through, is it TFND disclosures and all that kind of stuff. You could talk about this in more detail.
No, that's fine. I think you're doing a good job.
No,
Yeah, I think the data is going to get better. I think that's me being optimistic. I don't know. It has to, again, this is me being very hopeful and optimistic. As reporting becomes a bit more required and there's a bit more mandatory work around that, I think the data is just going to have to inherently get better. This is me being very hopeful and very, very optimistic. I don't know if that answers your question at all in terms of you're talking about scope 2 emissions in particular and scope 3 a bit more as well.
Some kind of agreement on scope 2.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, the government's own net zero targets tend to look at the tailpipe of the car, nothing else.
Yeah.
Try and mention anything else, and the lobbyists will hammer you down.
Yeah.
Not interested.
Yeah, it is. It is tricky. Yeah. And I don't know if I have an adequate response for what government should be doing.
If only you had someone from government
Yeah,
here.
yeah. But I'm hopeful. That's all I can give to this situation is optimism. I think at this point. Yeah. Sorry, that's not a helpful answer at all.
Thank you. I think Harry's arm's getting tired, so we'll quickly go to Harry.
One for Aisha. Just like you were talking about behavior change, and that's a bit that really interests me. And I was wondering, like, what messages you see, or so presumably the people who've come to you are pretty enthusiastic,
Yeah.
but then maybe have a job to sell to their company, or like, what are the things that work versus don't work in terms of messaging?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think we're still trying to fine tune what that hook is to get people in. I think a lot of the businesses that I work with are quite smaller and SMEs, sometimes even sole traders, and it's either from a contract that they're trying to win that's been the driver for them to kind of get engaged. I think for a lot of people, fortunately, I haven't had anyone in my workshop that has outright kind of denied kind of climate change overall. But I think there's still people that are just like, I'm not sure. Like, how do I justify allocating the capacity within my teams to put the effort towards this? And it's some about those benefits that I mentioned earlier, that it's going to come down to them eventually, and in some point of their supply chain, it will hit them. And it's like, how are you preparing for that versus waiting until it hits you and you're trying to scramble everything together in the last second to put together a bid? It's really about kind of how are you kind of preparing for that point. Also, again, I talked about this earlier, but it's like talent, I think, as well. I think there's a lot more young people that want jobs that, like I said, like align with their own personal values. So how are you kind of using that as an opportunity to attract new work, but also attract some people that are trying to work with you as well in the future? So yeah, I think that sustainability hook is not necessarily there anymore, but it's like, how do you want to survive as a business in the future, I think, is really what it's about. And how are you preparing for that? And yeah, is that helpful? Yeah. Okay.
Great stuff. I think actually that was pretty much the next question.
Oh,
so
okay.
thank you, Harry, for figuring that out. So yeah, I think we're done on questions. Yeah, all good. So yeah, big round of applause for Adam. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for coming online, and thank you for all of you for showing up. These events don't happen without you, so yeah, we're all really chuffed to have your support, and thank you so much for two amazing talks as well. So yeah, we are going to conclude, and feel free to mop up whatever's left over there. We are going to the Knights Templar very shortly once we've tidied up, and Tariq will escort you across. So if you do want to continue the chat, feel free to come along. Thank you very much.